Hi guys, welcome to Canadian Beer Journal. My name is Kevin. This will be entry number 5 and the last in our run on Imperial Russian Stouts, or Russian Imperial Stouts, whichever way you want to describe it, I guess. Local beer first. I was in the LCBO a few days ago and I saw a whole bunch of beers that I haven't seen actually on the shelves before. So I picked up a couple of them. I'll just show them to you and we'll probably do them in the next couple of reviews. First up, from Arch Brewing, is their Dinner Jacket O-Red IPA. Now, this apparently has oats in it, which is interesting because the only other IPA I've had with oats was 10 Bitter Years from Black Oak Brewing. That's an Imperial. And it worked really well there. It actually sort of added to the bitterness. So we'll see how it works in a sort of more standard IPA. Another one was from New Stout Brewing. This is their Scottish Pale Ale. I'd be interested to actually see what they've done with this, because the only beers that I've had in the sort of Scottish tradition have been wee heavies and Scotch ales, which tend to be bigger ales, really malty, kind of sweet ales. This is only 4.5%, so I'm curious to see whether or not it's a similar flavor profile, if it's just completely different, sort of what's going on there. From Hop City Brewing, this is their 8th Sin Black Lager. I've had their Barking Squirrel Lager before. They do a really interesting job in the sense that they do lagers primarily, but they do hop them up kind of like an ale. That said, you can still definitely tell that they're a lager. It's not like some of these IPLs, as they're calling them these days, which basically you take a lager and then try to make it not taste like one. I don't really see the point in that. So I'm looking forward to that. I do like a good Schwarzbier, something like Kostritzer or something like that. Curious to see what they've done with it. Finally, I was talking about this one earlier. This is Great Lakes Brewery Tank 10 Series Harry Porter and the Bourbon Soaked Vanilla Bean, which I'm guessing is a bourbon-aged vanilla porter. And they definitely mentioned vanilla in the description. They don't actually talk about the bourbon outside of the title, so that's what I'm guessing it is. I'll probably do that in a run, maybe of porters with another one like Mill Street Vanilla Porter and maybe Fuller's London Porter. But on to our main review. This is a beer I've been waiting to try for a very long time. I got it in Myrtle Beach, actually, last year, a place I believe called Greens. It is the Espresso Imperial Russian Stout from Stone Brewing. Really nice looking bottle there. This is the 2013 edition. Obviously, it's from last year, and this is their odd year release. So they did this alongside the classic release. It's a little bit bigger than the classic one. The classic one was 10.6% and 60 IBUs. This one is a full 11% and 65 IBUs, and it has espresso. So I'm guessing that they tried to balance it out a little bit more, given that they're adding the espresso by making it just a bit bigger and the beer itself a bit more complex. So, as I said, I've been waiting to try this for a long time. I've had last year's basic or classic edition, whatever it is, and it really is sort of a benchmark in terms of the American style of Russian Imperial Stouts, which tend to be big and just unbelievably thick, bold beers. So this one being even bigger, I'm curious to see what it's like. So get the top off there. A bit of smoke in the bottle, not too much. And again, I got this one out of the cellar, so I'll be doing the first part of the review now, and then probably waiting, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, just to see what it's like. So surprisingly, we do have a bit of a head on it. I didn't pour too much there, but a bit more than I expected at 11%, and I'm already getting kind of like ethanol vapors off of it. You can definitely tell that this is not a light touch. So, off the nose, you're getting a lot of fruitiness, a bit of the yeast, and just a bit of that ethanol burn in the nose already. And given that this beer is already pretty cold, that's saying something. But 11%, it's actually not as prominent as I thought it might be. I've had beers that are 9% or lower that have had much more of an alcohol nip on the nose. Now in the background, I can smell a bit of that coffee, a little bit of that biscuity malt. And yeah, now that it's already starting to warm up a little bit, I can definitely tell there's like a really dark burn kind of coffee nose in there, as you'd expect from espresso. All right, let's give it a taste. Cheers. Yeah, that is a very good beer. I'll tell you right away. So it is extremely thick, just on the mouth. Like it is sort of oily almost, even more so than the last couple of beers that we've been looking at. But it is actually incredibly balanced. It's got a little bit of that sweetness in there from the booze. It's got a fairly prominent coffee note, but it just melds really well with the basic kind of malt bitterness of a beer this big. So, anyhow, as I say, my initial impressions thus far are very good. It does seem quite balanced, which is saying something for an 11% beer. But I'm going to give it at least 20 minutes to warm up before I give you sort of my final verdict. A beer like this probably is going to be best at about 8 to 10 degrees. So, yeah, I'll see you then. Welcome back. I've been sipping on this now for probably about 20 or 30 minutes, and it's opened up quite a bit. So, final toll for what I'm smelling and tasting here on the nose, there is a very distinct espresso note, like a really dark ground roasted coffee kind of note, and some of that dark fruit that I was talking about earlier, like the raisins and the figs, kind of sweet and bitter at the same time. On the palate, it's really interesting because it sort of comes in layers. I'm actually noticing the dark fruit first, like raisins and figs, and then a hint of the coffee, and then a sort of really creamy malt backbone. And along with the hops, you get the alcohol warmth. Like you can see, I got a bit of a flush going, and I've only been having this one glass. So, what's nice about it, what sets it apart, I find, is that despite the fact that there are these distinct flavors, coffee, dark fruits, roasted malt, all of those, you can have it and not really think about it. Like you can just sort of sip on it and have it be this one really nice cohesive experience, which is something that a lot of big beers miss, to be honest. When they get much above 10%, there's usually one big sort of focal point that it's shouting at you, and then everything else is kind of an afterthought. Whereas this, they've done an amazing job of just balancing everything out. And the espresso really does add something to it. Last year's edition, 2012, as I said, was sort of a benchmark Imperial Russian Stout, and in my view, was a 10. It's probably the best IRS I'd had up until that point. And this one, if anything, is just a little bit better. It's a little bit more complex, has that extra layer of flavors in it. They've worked it in incredibly well. So I'm going to give this one a 10 right now. It's going to bounce the other one out of the list. And overall, I mean, at this point, you're probably going to have to pick up the 2014 edition. I'm guessing the 2013s are all sold out. But I wouldn't even hesitate to buy it. Just if you see it, pick it up, grab it off the shelf, and cellar it out maybe for a year or two. And a note on beers like this. I mean, it goes without saying, but this is a 22-ounce bottle, 650 mils. It's 11%. This is basically 4 regular beers. So you're not going to have one of these and then go do something else. You're not going to have one of these and then go driving, for instance. When you're tasting beers this big, share it out with some friends, or have it out over the course of an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. That way, for one, you're going to enjoy it more because it's going to open up, it's going to expand, you're going to see what it's like from beginning to end as it warms up. And also just, there's no point in rushing a beer like this. If you're chugging it down, you're just going to get hammered really quickly. You're not even going to know what you're tasting by the end. So, for both safety and your own personal enjoyment of the beer, I would say hang out with this one, have it at the end of the night, kind of like an aperitif after dinner with dessert or something. Just really hang on and enjoy it. So, with that, I've been having a blast actually reviewing these Imperial Stouts. For the next couple of reviews, it's sort of a grab bag. It's going to be those ones that I showed you earlier, just all those local brews. And we might do a run on porters after that. Just, again, something to look forward to. So, thank you for stopping by, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.